Okay, we're in for a treat. Dr. Terry Wahls is a person that I have been following for quite some time, and come full circle. She is an amazing woman, and you're going to learn so much and grow. So fasten your seatbelt because we're going to learn and grow together. And I know the start button is going to start pretty soon. There we go. Here we go. Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been listening to the show and are returning back, and you've been listening to either one day or 7 years, doesn't matter. Welcome back. I'm so grateful for you. But if you just happen to stumble upon this show, listen up because I've been waiting for you. This is no accident. You are listening because there's something on this show today that's going to speak to you. Now, for those of you who are new, just know that it is my sole purpose in life to receive love and knowledge, and it is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, how many of you have received a diagnosis where you're told that there is no cure, that you will either forever live with medication or you will die soon? Well, if you've heard that, or if someone has told you that, you're not alone. Approximately 2.3 million people are affected by the topic that we're talking about today, which is multiple sclerosis. And this is a statistic that I learned that is worldwide. And for many, receiving this diagnosis of multiple sclerosis is a death sentence. But for Terry Wahls, MD, Dr. Terry Wahls, who I've followed for a long time, this was an opportunity for her for a new obsession, to learn how to heal her body. Dr. Wahls will share her journey today, and she will take us from what was considered to be a forever depth of sickness to an integrative, functional approach to health. And as you know, every single medical practitioner that I have on the show is verified. And so, but I always encourage you to verify everyone who's on the show, and you can go to terrywahls.com to learn a little bit more about her. And you can also learn about her with her protocols that she's established for multiple sclerosis. But just know that Dr. Terry Wahls is an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner, which, by the way, I got to see her receive an incredible award. I was in tears the whole entire time. I'm all choked up now. And she's also a clinical professor of medicine for the University of Iowa, and she conducts clinical trials. She is the author of many books, and you can learn more about her at her website, terrywahls.com. But we're going to give you a different website so that you can download a specific diet for your health. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Terry Wahls is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Wahls, to the Lillian McDermott radio show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Well, share a little bit about your background and what made you want to become a doctor.
Well, actually, I'm a farm kid. I grew up here in Northeast Iowa, small family farm, and also love sciences, love the arts. Went off to the university and have a degree in Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, I decided that I would not get a master's in studio art after all. I went back and would apply to medical school, ended up in medicine. And, I must admit at the time, I was very impressed that basic science was way harder for me than most of my colleagues because I'd spent all that time in the arts. But it was that love of science and the arts that drew me to medicine. And I will also make the observation that I clearly was thinking about things differently than my colleagues, and more engaged in the patient narrative. However, I was an academic doc, and I was still very skeptical of special diets, supplements, complementary alternative medicine. I just couldn't really understand why the public was spending so much money on these unproven, unscientific remedies.
Sure. Yeah.
And I, at the time, certainly taught my residents that I was training to be likewise intensely skeptical of these complementary alternative approaches to health and wellness.
And of course, your own scare in your life and your diagnosis made you open. Is that what cracked you open?
Well, so in 2000, I started developing weakness in my left leg. I was stumbling, and I would ultimately see one of my friends in rheumatology, did a big workup, and then got sent to neurology, got MRIs of my brain, my spinal cord, spinal tap, blood tests, nerve conduction velocities. This took several weeks. And they found lesions in my spinal cord at my neck, which were, and reminded me that 13 years earlier, I had problems with dim vision in my left eye when I was out roller blading on a hot August, day after work. And so on the basis of the 13-year earlier.
And let's hold that thought. We're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Wahls when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Sorry about that, Dr. Wahls. So if I'd love to continue the story when we come back on, because I don't know how many people actually do the research to discover if they've been given a diagnosis, is there somebody out there doing whatever they need to learn conventionally, complementary, functional, integrative, holistic, and you certainly would be a picture under multiple sclerosis. Do you find that a lot of people just go with the medical, the conventional approach?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd say most folks right now are going to go the conventional approach, take the disease-modifying drugs. But interestingly enough, in multiple studies, there's growing awareness that patients are looking for additional complementary alternative medicine strategies. Vitamin D was embraced early. People are trying a variety of dietary approaches that are out there. That's very common. And now people are looking into acupuncture, chiropractic care as well.
Wow. And did you ever imagine that you would be saying those words when it came to treating disease, multiple sclerosis?
Well, I certainly never thought I'd be talking about like chiropractic care, acupuncture. Just like, oh my God, that would be heresy. Yeah, that clearly would be heresy. And I also did not ever expect that I'd be growing steadily less interested in drugs and much more interested in understanding people's diet, stress levels, environmental exposures, physical activity levels.
Yeah. You're speaking my language.
Social structures, loneliness factors, resilience factors, their connections with people. All of these factors just keep getting more and more important.
I know. If somebody would have spoken to me this way 8 years ago, I would have told them they were crazy. I would have been completely closed to it. If it weren't for this show, Dr. Wahls, I would have never have been so graced by all the teachers that we've had on the show that have taught me anew. As a matter of fact, my registered service mark, I used to take a pill just in case I got a headache. I grew up with asthma and I grew up with all these things that I was told that I needed to take that magic pill. So my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. I'm talking about the pharmaceutical pill there is, which I'm not against the pill. I am for doing everything, complementary, all holistic first before trying that pill.
Well, I think it's a separate question. Do you have a condition that is benefited by drug therapy? Mm-hmm. And you can decide you want to take the drug therapy or not. Regardless of what you decide about pharmaceuticals, if you want to have health, that is about the quality of your diet, your physical activity level, your stress-reducing practice, your social connectiveness, your resilience factors, and how you choose to construct your life.
Perfect.
Are you constructing it in a way that optimizes health, or are you constructing it in a way that optimizes profit for everyone else?
I love it. I love it. And that is where I want to start the journey with you again when we go back on the air, Dr. Wahls, because I want people to recognize themselves in your story. And I
Sure.
think that once we identify with your story, regardless of what the diagnosis is, to find our own path is just so beautiful. And that's what I love about your story. And so it looks like we're about to get started. And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn and grow together. Today's teacher is Dr. Terry Wahls. You guys are in for a treat. This woman, I have followed her for such a long time. I have seen her growth. I have heard her talks, and I even saw her receive an incredible award by the Institute of Functional Medicine. What she has gone through so that you don't have to go through it, which is the step 4 in taking 100% responsibility, is taking your wisdom and helping others that are going through that journey. Dr. Wahls, let's talk about that moment. You're going through all the workup. How do people know if they have multiple sclerosis versus diabetes versus arthritis? How do they know it's multiple sclerosis?
Generally, there's been years of symptoms. They finally get referred to a neurologist who typically does a MRI of the brain, spinal cord. They may do a few blood work and some nerve conduction tests. Putting all of that together, you're looking for lesions in the brain and spinal cord separated by time and location, time and space. So in my case, I had the visual symptoms and the leg symptoms. So 2 different parts of my nervous system separated by 13 years. I met criteria then for relapsing remitting MS. And you do some blood work and a few other tests to make sure there's no other cause. And that's when, and I knew I wanted to treat my disease aggressively. So I started disease modifying drugs right away. And I looked for the best MS center here in the Midwest, which was the Cleveland Clinic. Saw their best people, took the newest drugs, and had one relapse involving weakness of my right hand. But I continued to decline for the next basically 7 years. I would be switched to a variety of disease-modifying therapies, including Tysabri. I was, thrilled to get to take Tysabri, but continued to decline. And as I hit the wheelchair, that's when it was apparent to me that the best therapies were not seeing the very best people, taking the newest, latest drugs, was not stopping my slide towards a bedridden, possibly demented, possibly horrific, refractory, uncontrolled pain. And so that's when I started searching, reading PubMed, reading article after article, and I would begin experimenting, using diet, using supplements. I would eventually, in 2007, discover the Institute for Functional Medicine. I took their course on neuroprotection, had a much deeper understanding of everything that I could do. And it was that summer that I really redesigned my whole approach in this very intentional way, specifically to optimize the health of my mitochondria, the health of my brain. And I'd also say, I did all of that knowing that with progressive MS, there is no recovery. I had secondary progressive MS. It was all my neurologists at the Cleveland Clinic, at the University of Iowa, had all said, functions once lost are gone forever. And by that time, I couldn't sit up anymore. 10 minutes was as long as I could sit up. I could walk 10 feet using 2 walking sticks slowly, exhausted by 10 in the morning. Had severe episodes of trigeminal neuralgia that were increasingly frequent, increasingly difficult to turn off. And I was beginning to have brain fog. I was still working. My boss had told me he was going to switch me to the traumatic brain injury clinic. I went to have residence. It was a job that I knew physically I could not do, and I'd be doing that in about 6 months in January. So, it looked grim. It looked really grim there at the summer of 2007.
So what changed for you? Because, well, first, before we talk about what changed for you and that made you more open to a more functional, integrative approach to healing, I've learned just recently that there are different kinds of arthritis. There's different kinds of cognitive decline. There's different kinds of inflammation in the body. Are there different kinds of MS? Because I see some
Sure.
people that have to be on a wheelchair, and other people that live who's that guy? He's a talk show host on television.
Montel Williams.
Montel Williams,
Yeah.
who's been
Yeah.
able to live a pretty healthy life, or what it looks like. So what would you like to say about the different kinds of MS?
So relapse remitting, you have an acute relapse, things get worse. Your body does some adaptations and you improve. That's called a remission. That's where 80% of folks are diagnosed, or so things come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, most of those folks will convert to the secondary progressive form, which is what I had done. At that point, it's a progressive illness, and the goal is to slow the speed of decline. Some folks will have primary progressive, where there's no relapse, there's just a steady decline. I'd really had maybe 3 relapses in the whole time. Most of my illness was in this progressive decline phase. And because you can have lesions anywhere in your body, that is anywhere in your brain, in your spinal cord, the manifestations are very different. You may have a lot of sensory problems. You may have difficulty with speech, with swallowing. You may have difficulty with arms, legs, balance. So everyone looks different based on the locations of their lesions.
And that's why it would cause some people to become paralyzed and other people that would not, right?
Correct.
Okay. So with that in mind, the Lillian McDermott radio show focuses on a mind, body, spirit approach to health. It's not just, which most people just want to heal the body. They just want to take a pill, or they just want to do whatever to heal the body. But the emotional and the spiritual work that goes along with healing is often neglected. What can you share a little bit about your journey as you got started learning about functional medicine?
Well, so as I'm declining, and I have to keep reimagining my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 kids, very young at the time of diagnosis, 8 and 5. They're watching me get more and more disabled, and so I am thinking about how am I going to parent, how am I going to teach them how to be successful adults, emotionally and financially.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is, okay, I can model resilience. I can model that you go to work, you keep doing the best you can, no matter how difficult life becomes. And that they would have chores. They would have to have real responsibility of things they would have to do to help our household run. And I remember my kids being really upset that they had to do the laundry, at this really tender age of 9. And I'm like, you're right. It is so unfair that you have to do the laundry, because they were mad that none of their friends knew anything about laundry soap or dryers. And I'm empathizing. Yep, that's so not fair. But it's also not fair that I have MS, that I can't do that anymore, and that it's getting harder to go to work. But I'm going to get up and go to work every day, no matter what, because that's my job. That's what I need to do for this family. And your job that you need to do for this family is do the laundry. So you're right. Life's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. But so what? You have a job to do. I have a job to do. And my youngster, stomped her foot, screamed at me for a little bit, and said, I think you are glad you have MS, so you can lecture me about God.
What did you do next?
Now my youngster's horrified that I tell that story. And I go, it really is an age-appropriate, kid-focused response. Mm-hmm. But what is remarkable is, between every event in our life and however challenging it is how we choose to respond to it. It's not the event that crushes our spirit. It's how we choose to respond. Are we going to go forward and make a choice that defines our character in a positive way, in a powerful way, in a way that chooses my destiny, or in a way that gives up and gives control to everyone else? And so and this was not easy. I kept having to reimagine my life, reimagine my role as a parent, and focus on the thing that was most important, was being able to teach my children how to be successful emotionally and financially, which meant I had to model resilience. I had
Very
to
good.
model that, yep, life's not fair, but so what? You have to go on and do the best you can.
So as you are taking this attitude of, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes, because now you're not only just taking care of yourself, but you're taking care because of your children. You want to be there. At what point do you start making this shift? Because you can have an attitude of, I can do this, but to have the wisdom to look beyond what conventional medicine was
Well,
telling you.
so, I'm taking the newest drugs. Things are clearly going downhill. It's like, well, I got to do everything. Well, the one thing I can do is go to the library, start using PubMed.gov, start searching. At first I look for the drug trials, then I have a big aha, like, well, shit, I got to look for things I can access. So I would eventually start looking for supplements, and I would design a supplement cocktail, because I developed this theory that mitochondria were the driver of brain atrophy, spinal cord atrophy, and disability in most neurodegeneration, including progressive MS. And by the way, I thought that before this is really being talked about much in the MS literature. It seems the rest of the world has caught up to that.
Yes.
I did figure out that supplements for the mitochondria helped my fatigue. They didn't lead to recovery, but they slowed the speed of my decline. And I also, my Cleveland Clinic doctors mentioned the work of Lillian. And so after 20 years of being a vegetarian, this is when I was still walking around, suggested I investigate Lillian work, and I adopted the paleo diet. A lot of prayer, a lot of meditation went back to that decision to eating meat. I gave up grains, legumes, dairy, so it was a huge change of my diet. But I continued to decline, but I stayed with it because I was doing something. And then, I started on the supplements. That was clearly helping my fatigue, which energized me more to read the science and start looking at, okay, what else could I do? Now, and then ultimately, that would lead to discovering this interesting organization, the Institute for Functional Medicine.
Yes.
And they had that course on neuroprotection, which I took, by the way, in the midst of my brain fog. So that there was a lot of hard work there. And I had a bigger list of supplements. And then in the summer of 2007, I had this really big aha, which was, what if I redesign my paleo diet in a very structured way to maximize what I was getting in the supplements? And so what that did was I now was focusing not on just what to remove from my diet, but what to stress. That led to this dramatic reversal in terms of energy, mental clarity, and then, so I made that change at the very end of December. And in January, I go off to the traumatic brain injury clinic, and to my surprise, I could do that job. Wow. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then in the end of February, so 2 months into this, I began walking around the hospital with a cane. And in 6 months, I actually get on my bike and I bike around the block.
Wow.
I'm crying, my wife's crying, my kids are crying. We're all like, I can't quite believe what's happening. And it was at that moment that I realized the understanding that conventional neurology has about progressive MS is wrong. Yes. And who knows what the real root cause is, and who knows how much recovery is possible.
And that is so powerful. And for those of you who want to learn Dr. Terry Wahls' protocol, you can go to terrywahls.com/diet and download that. And we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Wahls when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Good job. What a great story. Well, actually, it's, I'm sorry that you had to go through this.
Oh, I'm not at all.
I know you're not. But anytime someone has to go through something tough, I like to acknowledge the toughness that it took to get out of that. And so because you went through it And I focus on 100% responsibility. And I'm talking about the responsibility that leads to empowerment and freedom, the kind of, like the things that we go through, the trials that we go through, that become our testimonies later on. And so we take what we learn and we help others along the way. And now you are, and this is where I want to go with the next segment. I want to talk about the protocol and what you've discovered. Now, during, while we were talking during the air, you talked about the supplements that you were having. Would you be able to share some of the supplements that you were using to enhance the food you were eating?
Sure. So, at the time, this was B vitamins, creatine, lipoic acid, carnitine, coenzyme Q, and then over time, there'd be a few more antioxidants, some more sulfur-based amino acids, and over time, I began to think more about, so where are these things in the food supply? And actually, it was really interesting. So I went to talk to my registered dietitian friends to ask them, like, okay, so where do I find these things in the food? And their response, I have no idea.
I know.
And so then I go to the library. They couldn't really help me out, but Google could. And the Linus Pauling Institute on Micronutrients
Yes.
was what I started reading and researching. And that really got me into thinking about, it's the food. It's the food. It is the food. And that the other thing people don't realize, supplements. So how are supplements made? And in what country are they made? And what is the process? Are they chemically made? Are they made from recombinant DNA? And most of these are coming out of China. And so how reliable are supplements? Food is so much more robust. And things will be in the biologic ratios. So,
some people say that you can't eat enough food to supply the nutrients that we need because the soil is not as good as it was, even with organic food. So most people are saying, well, we do need supplements to supplement what's deteriorating in our food. Is that something that you've been able to identify, or?
I certainly think if someone is ill with a chronic illness, that they may benefit from a thoughtful physical exam, history taking, and targeted testing. And they may, in fact, benefit from supplements to get them out of their severe deficiencies. But if you focus on supplements, as opposed to understanding the person's unique story, history, and exam, I think you're going to be much more likely to get derailed.
Correct.
So I minimize the conversation about supplements, other than to say, yes, it's certainly very helpful to examine the person and then make an assessment and determination about how you might help them.
Absolutely.
But my public health message is, many of my paleo friends are in love with all these yummy paleo desserts that are so yummy and so incredibly delicious, when they should be thrilled with having vegetables, liver a couple times a week, and whatever protein sources they want. Our brains are programmed to love these sweet, yummy things. And so we keep reimagining, re-engineering our food supply into foods that are yummy and delicious, but not what our DNA expects, and are not and will not create health and vitality. But beets, carrots, spinach, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, these things are good for us. A little bit of kelp is good for us. Liver, heart, gizzards, tongue, that's good for us. I will acknowledge vegetarian and vegans who are committed to that for their spiritual beliefs. We did create a program that honors them and gives them guidance as vegetarian and vegans.
Very good.
And we've created programs for people who would benefit from a ketogenic diet. And there are people who absolutely would benefit from a ketosis program as well.
Yeah, I believe that one size doesn't fit all. And I love your approach to learning what the deficiencies are in each individual. And it looks like we're about to get started for segment 3. This is where I talk a little bit about my my website and my show, and then I will reintroduce you once I'm done. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. I think we're ready. Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my philosophy in life that the person in front of you knows more than you. Go through life with this childlike wonder. Find out what it is. Be curious about what they know instead of critical. And then little by little, we learn the lessons that we need to take along the way. WhenYouNeedAFriend.com was created for you. When you need a friend, not everybody has a good friend to turn to that will turn you the direction that you need. Not just tell you what you want to hear, but help you discover your yellow brick road, your journey back to health, whatever that looks like to you. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please become a subscriber while you're there. Check out all the little buttons. Follow me on social media. Follow me on YouTube also. Just make sure, because, you know, the conversation that we're having off the air, you're not hearing it while you're driving. You're not hearing it on the air or the podcast. So subscribe to both whenyouneedafriend.com and YouTube, because the show will be sent to you and you can learn a lot of more that other than what's being said on the air. Also, while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, I want to ask you to please check out my sponsors. Without my sponsors, the show would not happen. And so please figure out how you can support my sponsors the way they are supporting the show. Now, today, we are truly blessed and honored to have Dr. Terry Wahls. And I am, you know, she is so busy and she does so much that to have her on the show, I mean, this is just amazing. So I just want to make sure that you get every single morsel on and off the air. Also, she is giving away a couple of things. If you become a subscriber at terrywahls.com, then you will get more information about her protocol, but you could also go to terrywahls.com/diet, and it gives you an idea of how to follow her protocol. So there's different things that you can do. So terrywahls.com is where you get to know her website, but if you actually do /diet, you'll be able to get like a bullet item, a one-pager of her protocol. Dr. Wahls, thank you so much for being on the show today. I am so grateful to you and all the work that you are doing.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay, so we're talking about multiple sclerosis, but when it comes to getting a diagnosis that you're told that you will forever be, you know, gloom and doom, always on this medication, decline, 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 you said you don't need to buy that. You can actually do research. You did the research for yourself, and you've been able, how long have you been symptom-free, Dr. Wahls?
You know, as long as I stay on my protocol, I continue to get stronger, plenty of energy, no pain. If I am fed gluten, dairy, or eggs, I'll get a flare of pain, that horrific electrical pain. So I'm very, very particular about the food that I eat, who I'm going to let cook for me. And if I'm at all uneasy, I just choose to fast. And because I do periodic fasting, going 2 or 3 days without food is not a big deal. So if I'm uneasy about the food, I just order tea, and that's much safer for me. But I have done extraordinarily well in the 10 years, and I've been without any disease-modifying treatments since the March of 2008.
That's amazing, amazing.
After 7 years of steady decline, despite taking the newest drugs, including Tysabri.
And that's basically what I've seen, people that have been given this MS diagnosis, but it doesn't have to be MS. It could be anything, that any diagnosis that is debilitating. Now, on the Lillian McDermott radio show, we've heard over and over, I've had doctors like Dr. Lee Cowden. I've had, I'm not just going to go through the names, but they've come on the show and said, before you do all the physical and all that, there is an emotional component to a disease. Were you able to address that within your research? Did you ever discover that there was something that maybe was causing the root cause of your disease, or did you feel that yours was all medical and failure of the body?
I think all of us have to really pay attention to our resilience factors, and that has to do with your self-talk, your social connectedness, your meaning in life, your purpose. Do you have a commitment to a religious faith? All of those things greatly add to our resilience. Basic science will tell you that all those factors will influence your level of cellular inflammation, and that loneliness is profoundly injurious to our health. And so in my clinical trials and in my clinical practice, we are seeing the impacts of these issues. Our stress response, our social connectedness, our resilience, and our loneliness factors are incredibly important. So yes, I think being mindful of that, and then in my book and in my seminar, we spend more and more time talking about those factors, because my practice and my research is telling me how important it is to deal with those things.
Very good. Okay, so we know that the gut is very important. You just finished saying that whenever you have gluten, dairy, and eggs, that affects you in a way that does everybody who have MS, are these triggers for them too, or does everybody have their own triggers?
Oh, I think people have their own triggers that's unique to them. It can be challenging to figure out what are your individual triggers. I have everyone remove those 3 foods first, and then they could reintroduce them after 100 days. And then I discuss how to make the determination. Do you have to investigate further with additional eliminations or food testing? And I'd say about 20% of folks would benefit from either additional eliminations or food testing to further zero in. But that does mean 80% have remarkable recovery just by doing gluten, dairy, and eggs.
Isn't that amazing? So you were saying off the air, it's the food. You kept looking at the food and you don't focus so much on the supplements, because the food has all what we need to heal our body. And so,
we have to be very, very thoughtful about our supplements. Most of our nutrients have a large U-shaped curve, so that if we are too low in a nutrient, we become symptomatic. If we're too high in that nutrient, we become symptomatic. And so when you're low and you start supplementing, you feel great, but eventually you become toxic, and you may not appreciate that the supplement is giving you problems. That's why supplement use ends up being, you have to be very thoughtful.
Keep monitoring it, right?
You want to have somebody help you monitor when you've taken enough, and you can stop that.
Okay, so back again with the gut health. For those of you who watch the YouTube video of this, there is poop, like little poop figures on Dr. Wahls' windowsill. Let's talk about the importance of our microbiome and eliminating the waste in our body. And there we go.
Okay.
You guys have to watch the YouTube video. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, go ahead.
I love poop. Poop. When I was a intern, we made so much fun of our elderly patients who were so fixated on their bowels. They kept saying, "I knew if I could just have a good bowel movement, I would feel so much better." Well, it turns out they were completely correct. Yes. That we are a superorganism. We're dependent on our microbiome to help us run the chemistry of life. And to make the small metabolites, small molecules that we get into our bloodstream and ultimately into our CSF and brain, influence our immune cell balance, influencing our neurotransmitters, influence our mood, our behavior, our immune function in our brain and systemically. And so that means the drivers of who's living in our microbiome, and here's my poop again, really depends on what we eat, our previous antibiotic exposures, and a lifetime of environmental exposures, physical activity levels, stress, sleep, all of that. But the biggest driver is, what are you eating? And so more fiber, more non-starchy vegetables, dump the sugar, dump the processed foods, that will go a long way. And if you've had a lot of antibiotic exposures, antibiotics can be life-saving, then we have to think about what we could do to help you repopulate your microbiome. And it comes down to eating vegetables, lots more vegetables.
Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about the ketogenic and paleo and all these people, different people that choose, but the bottom line that we need to focus on, whether depending on what little they have of the animal products or whatever, it's the vegetables and the importance of the vegetables, what I'm hearing you say as well.
Yeah, we have to get rid of the white flours, the high glycemic index foods, the fructose. Agave is 100% fructose. It's really terrible for us. All these yummy desserts that are so yummy and delicious, they are just so tempting, but they're not what our microbiome needs. Our microbiome needs fiber. They need to be protected from those foods, and so there are strategies for being a ketogenic eater. There are, and people talk about the Inuit who eat mostly meat and fat.
And we're going to continue our conversation when we return with Dr. Wahls at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Sorry, Dr. Wahls, I have to keep an eye on the clock there. So go ahead, keep your thought going.
Oh yeah. So with the Inuit, they're eating their meat raw. They eat mostly raw meat, so they're getting their water-soluble vitamins. When we cook our meat,
what did you call that again?
The Inuit, the Alaska natives in the far north.
Inuits. Okay.
And so I would talk to my folks who don't eat their vegetables. Like, okay, well, yes, you could eat more liver. You could make that work. You could have your meat raw. And that's certainly what the Inuit do, and that, yes, they thrive. But now you have to think about the public health consequences of having raw meat in today's environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't recommend that as your physician, that you're having raw meat. You have to really think very carefully about that. If you don't eat vegetables, you're going to have strategies to get these water-soluble vitamins, including vitamin C. And that's going to include raw liver, raw heart, raw meats, and there's big public health risks from doing that, particularly where animals are slaughtered. There's.
What about desiccated? What about desiccated liver and adrenals and all of that?
So there are some very interesting companies that are doing desiccated organ meats out of New Zealand, and they have not had any mad cow, mad cow disease there. Yeah. So that's probably the safest place to get them from. And I certainly know practitioners who've used that, and many of my followers who just are not spiritually able to get their head around eating these superfoods known as organ meats, will take that strategy. Mm-hmm. Now I'll tell you, my children and who they're young adults, they like liver. They love liver and onions. So it's and they love tongue and they love heart. So these foods are delicious and can be made in a very yummy, tasty way that teenagers and adolescent children actually do like and enjoy. And they serve them to their friends who also like and enjoy them. And after the meal, then they would let them know what they had just consumed. So,
after the fact?
Always after the fact.
That's a cruel joke.
After the fact.
After the fact. Oh.
And so, it certainly can be done. And, and to that end, the cookbook that I have, the Wahls Protocol, Cooking for Life, we have some of those organ meat recipes. And
that's really hard to find. It's very hard to find, and that you can trust your source, because you would have to, you talk about New Zealand, but the United States allows, the GMO fed animals, and we haven't even tapped into toxicity in the body when it comes to healing MS. What do you think?
Well, ideally you want to have your food at the highest quality that you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I was at the VA, I was there 17 years taking care of people, many of whom are living on food stamps. They have very limited resources. And I taught these concepts to them.
Mm-hmm.
They were implementing them, eating conventional food, and living on food stamps. They could still implement these concepts. You don't have to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. You don't have to buy organic. Although I will say, people would work this for 6 months. By the end of the 6 months, these folks living on food stamps had figured out, in fact, how to get more organic food into their diets.
Isn't that amazing?
And they had, they still were, gardening, hunting, fishing, going to the farmer's market, and going up to the vendor saying, now at the end of the market, what's the best price you could give me for all your produce that's left? And so they could get organic vegetables, pennies on the dollar.
That's a great tip. Great tip by Dr. Wahls. I am so impressed. That's really good, because, that is the number one excuse I hear.
It's an excuse. It's an excuse. I can't afford that.
Yes.
And so you don't have to have a lot of money for expensive testing. You don't have to have a lot of money for organic foods. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be going to Whole Foods. You do have to begin to cook. You do have to begin cooking using vegetables and whatever source of protein that you're going to use. Now, it is true for many of my folks, money is a challenge. And so we would teach them how to get a pressure cooker and use the pressure cooker to use lower cost meats and to use legumes and gluten-free grains to deal with their protein. But it's critical to learn how to cook. It's critical to learn and address the lifestyle factors.
Dr. Wahls, where can people go to if they want to, other than buying your book? I mean, if they wanted to, are you giving workshops and seminars? And
yes.
So can you share a little bit of that before we go back on the air?
So I do a seminar every summer, the Wahls Protocol seminar. It's July 25th through 27th. And it's 3 days where you learn from me. That Wednesday night before we start, you hear some testimonials from other folks whose lives have been transformed. I have clinicians come as well. And then we have case-based teaching and give an exam and certify health professionals, so health coaches, nutrition professionals, physicians, chiropractors, movement professionals, mental health professionals.
That's wonderful.
And we are now, we have an online virtual training program for health professionals as well. If people, go to terrywahls.com, they'll see that we have information about the seminar and the health professional certification program.
And if they become a subscriber on your website, you said that they get, what is it that they get downloaded? You had mentioned it right before the show. Yes. And I couldn't remember.
So it's a functional medicine glossary of terms.
That's right.
Which is so helpful for people to understand what are all of these things, leaky gut, food sensitivity testing, these various terms that integrative physicians, functional medicine physicians are talking about. It's a great tool to begin that journey of understanding what can integrative functional medicine bring to you that perhaps your conventional approach to your health issues are not aware of and not willing to address yet.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So we're about to, this is our last segment, Dr. Wahls. I don't want to let you go, but I'm so grateful for this information. And so we're going to get started on the next segment. And I really do want to talk about toxic overload and some of the things that we're doing, maybe some healing foods that can help, and some foods, you already said the foods to eliminate, sugar,
Sure.
wheat. And so I would like, some people have an easier time thinking about what to add to their life as opposed to what they're taking away. So so toxic, and then what we can add to heal our bodies. So here we go. Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we always learn and grow together. Today, it's a treat. And for those of you, if you've never listened to any or watched any of my YouTube, lots of powerful information. I wish we could take everything she's saying and repeat it for you, but you're going to have to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, become a subscriber on my YouTube channel. It'll be sent right to you as a free gift every time. Okay, Dr. Wahls, thank you so much for all the important information you've been sharing on and off the air. So let's talk about toxic overload. We've learned the last time I was at the Institute of Functional Medicine conference that you received your wonderful award. They talked a lot about toxic overload. Would you like to share how that has to do with multiple sclerosis?
Sure. And this probably has to do with certainly many of our chronic autoimmune conditions, whether it's MS, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis, that mercury, lead, arsenic rev up the inflammation, rev up the oxidative stress. And some of the big sources of where we're getting the mercury and lead has to do with coal-powered and coal burning. The lead, mercury, arsenic can be industrial contaminants into the air and into the water. There are higher rates of developmental problems and challenges for behaviors and expenses related to autism and learning issues for our children, according to the release of mercury county by county.
Are you talking about vaccinations, or are you talking about environmental?
I'm talking about environmental.
Okay.
Entirely separate from the vaccination question.
Okay.
So, and when I look at the current government that is decreasing the regulations, allowing for increased dumping or tolerance of mercury, lead, arsenic into the air, into the water, that will have long-term health consequences. And then you have glyphosate. That's, I'm in Iowa, so we are surrounded with glyphosate. Glyphosate or Roundup is in our water, in the rainwater that's coming down. And glyphosate is a very, very potent antibiotic. It's changing the microbiome of the soil. And plants depend on the microbiome in order to absorb minerals through the root hairs into the plant. And so that decreases the mineral content of the food, which in turn will have a big impact on the mineral content for the individuals. And so some of the questions people think about is, okay, so how can I ramp up my ability to get rid of these toxins? And so sweating more, and then of course, pooping more is really helpful.
Yes.
You can eat more cabbage family vegetables, which is why I emphasize that in my dietary plans. You can eat more onion family vegetables. That will help. You could eat more deeply colored vegetables and berries. That will help. So I've organized my food plan in a very specific way for the brain, for the mitochondria, and to boost your body's ability to eliminate and process these toxins.
Very good. Very good. So the 3 Ps: peeing, pooping, and perspiration, right? Those are things
Absolutely.
that get peeing, pooping, and the 3 Ps. Okay. So that's important. And when it comes to the Roundup and glyphosate, are there any other ways? I mean, we've heard of chelation, we've heard of different modalities to eliminate toxins in the body, getting rid of amalgams. Is there anything else that you would suggest we can do?
Something we don't talk nearly enough about are there toxic relationships?
That's a good one.
So are the people around you supporting making health promoting decisions about how you eat and conduct your life? Or are the people around you who are sabotaging your health promoting decisions, encouraging you to eat foods that you are likely sensitive to, that will likely rev up your inflammation? And so you may benefit from taking a very thoughtful look at who should I spend more time with because they nurture my healing journey, and who should I restructure my time away from a food exposure so I can still see this person that may be family, may be important to me, but I don't want them to set me up to make a bad food choice.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like
that. That of course is a very big conversation to have with yourself, and you start realizing, I love my brother, but I just can't go somewhere and have a meal with him because it's too difficult for me.
Yeah.
So we'll have to go have tea instead.
Yes.
Or we'll go to the park and go for a walk instead. Or that we'll just talk on the phone instead. So I'm not asking people to remove the person from your life, but think about in what context can you spend time that is still helpful to you.
And basically what you are referring to is balancing and really taking a good look inwards, and how I can see, like many times as a life coach, many times people want to control everybody else, but it's so much easier and less time consuming if I just have to worry about one person, and that's me, right?
And yet that's the only one you control.
The only one.
And your kids, you don't even control your kids. I mean, they'll make their own decisions. My wife's going to make her own decisions. I control my decisions.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Anything else? What are some of the healing foods? We know some of the foods to eliminate completely to start with 80% success, but what are some of the things we can add that we may not be doing right now?
So a lot of folks don't have nearly enough greens in their diet. Mm-hmm. Greens are a great source of carotenoids and vitamin K. And there's more and more research coming out that the vitamin K, which gets metabolized to vitamin K2 by the bacteria and then converted to vitamin K2, MK4 by your liver, that goes to your brain and is involved in making myelin. It's also in your brain and speaks to your brain stem cells and the cells that make myelin. So and in your eyeballs, it helps make retina. So having cooked greens every day is one of the most useful foods you can have for repairing your brain, avoiding macular degeneration, avoiding cataracts, maintaining eye health.
Wow.
It'll also help you make sure that you can get your calcium into your teeth and your bones. So you have healthy teeth and healthy, strong bones. I've already mentioned the cabbage, onions. I'm a big fan of mushrooms. Now you have to be careful that they're culinary mushrooms, not and medicinal mushrooms. You don't want poisonous ones because those will obviously be bad for you. But mushrooms can stimulate the immune cells in helpful ways and can stimulate nerve growth production.
Yeah.
And we need plenty of omega-3, omega-6 fats in a nice ratio. So if you can afford grass-fed meat, wild fish, that would be ideal. A limited amount of nuts and seeds, I think, are fine. If you're going to use any oils, I prefer it be olive oil, cold. And if you're going to cook with heat, then it should be a saturated fat like ghee, duck fat, chicken fat, lard, bacon fat.
I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And for those of you who would like to learn more, you can go to terrywahls.com. That's WAHLS. That's H as in Henry, LS. And if you do /diet, you will get a a condensed version, a one-page protocol. And then also, if you become a subscriber at terrywahls.com, you will get a glossary that will help you with some of these functional terms that you can become your own medical detective and your own expert. Dr. Wahls, you are an amazing woman, and I am, again, so grateful that you've been on the Lillian McDermott radio show. This is truly a highlight for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to you, my listening friend, once you learn the truth, you cannot unlearn it. You got to see what resonates in you and take your health back. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, because just say, if Terry Wahls can do it, so can I. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job. Thank you so much, Dr. Wahls. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I had a listener contact me about this, and I thought, I deal with this too. So I thought, let me ask you, if it's not part of your protocol, that's fine. But bile production being low. I've been told I have low bile production, and this listener had said, because they listen, Dr. Joel Furman is a regular on my show, and next time he comes on, we're going to be asking Dr. Furman questions. And this was one of the questions that came up, and I thought, I wonder what your opinion is, Dr. Wahls, on people that have low bile production in their body.
Yeah, certainly that can happen, and taking ox bile can be very helpful.
Ox bile?
Ox bile.
How do you spell that?
OX. And then the word bile, B-I-L-E.
Okay.
And I also make the observation that eating a westernized diet, high in sugar, white flour, low in vegetables, is associated with development of gallstones. And higher probability of having your gallbladder removed. Eating a paleo diet lowers that risk. Is it the elimination of grains and legumes? Possibly. Is it more important to eliminate the sugar, the processed foods? Absolutely. It's diet related. And
in my case, this is what my gut is telling me. When I was younger, I was told that I was producing too much acid, and they put me on Nexium and all these purple pills and all that stuff. And I took it for many, many years with acid reflux. The reality was, this is the honest truth, that I wasn't producing enough. And then they were putting all this other stuff on there to mask the symptoms. My body was telling me something was wrong. And I completely eliminated all animal products. I eat a whole food plant-based diet. And I incorporate a whole food plant-based diet. I didn't eliminate all animal products because I eat a nutritarian lifestyle. And so with that, I'm finding—
you resolved it.
The what?
Correct. And I certainly wonder, I think that the key problem is the sugar, the white flour, the processed foods. And I certainly know there are those, like Joel Furman, who are vegan, who have been very successful with the bile. And the paleo folks have been very successful. What I think is compelling is that in both circumstances, it's getting rid of the sugar and the processed foods.
Yeah.
That is probably the key element for success. And it depends on the person's spiritual beliefs. Are they going to do it as a meat eater or as a vegetarian vegan? What I think for the meat eaters, my bias is I think they'll have much better health if they moderate the meat and have more vegetables. There are certainly some interesting work, and we can thrive as carnivores, no vegetables. But in the wild, societies that do that are consuming the meat raw. and that's very different. And they're eating a very different kind of meat product
Sure.
than what is available now in the commercial industrialized farming.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the rationale, and by having a carnivore diet, they may decrease the risk of some of the plant food sensitivities that people develop. But they're driving up mTOR, driving up insulin. So there's still some health concerns that I have with a carnivore-only diet.
Oh yeah.
And that there are societies that are carnivore only,
Mm-hmm.
but those traditional societies do that as consuming raw meat from a very different kind of product than what is available commercially in the US.
Got it. And in my situation, where I believe mine was made worse, because when I was younger, oh my God, you're absolutely right. I was a sugarholic, ate flour, processed, and all of that. And to mask my body saying, hey, we need to do something different, they gave me acid inhibitor, and I think made it worse for me. Now that I've been a whole food plant-based and eating a healthier diet than I ever thought I'd ever embrace, I'm still struggling with the bile. So you're thinking ox bile is something that I should consider?
I'd certainly look into that. You may find that to be quite helpful.
Okay, I will do that. Now, is there anything else as we close our segment today that you would like to share with my listeners and my viewer? Well, right now it would be viewers.
So we have clinical. So a lot of folks are convinced that their physicians tell them, "I never had MS," that I'm a hoax, whatever. And even if you decide that all the neurologists that I saw were incompetent and made a mistake at the Cleveland Clinic here at the University of Iowa, the more important observation is that, so I've done case series, we have done multiple pilot studies, we have a large clinical trial that has been published in the peer review literature. And I continue to investigate all of this. That's one thing. And then we have the hundreds of thousands of followers who are reporting success across multiple domains. So try addressing your diet and lifestyle to create the most optimal health possible. And then work with your primary care physician, because if they are afraid about you eating more vegetables, fire them and get a new.
That's right.
And don't worry about your specialist. As your health improves, you will likely require fewer medications to control the symptoms, fewer disease-modifying drugs, less blood pressure meds, less blood sugar meds, and less pain meds. And we time and time again, we see people need fewer and fewer drugs. So hopefully some of your viewers will check out our website and consider coming to our seminar. It's a wonderful community of practitioners and patients who are seeing their lives transformed by learning how to take charge of their health choices.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Wahls. And for those of you who want to go to terrywahls.com, on there, she also has little icons where you can follow her and you can click on those as well. It's time to take our health back. It really is. You can take a pill, you can take responsibility. It's what I always say. But I also want to add acknowledge what Dr. Wahls was saying when it comes to, if your doctor says, you don't need to eat this or whatever, just look at your doctor. If your doctor looks like someone you want to look like, if they look healthy, then just listen. But if they look like, if they're smoking and they're living their life real stressed out and have a gut on them, think again. Just consider, maybe getting someone else that is stepping outside the box. Maybe someone, if you go to the Institute of Functional Medicine website, you can maybe find a functional doctor to support you as well. So I'm just going to add that. But Dr. Wahls, thank you so much for gracing us today with your information.
You're very welcome.
And to you, my viewers, if you like this video, please share it, like it, and let's all grow together. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wahls.